Yes, thank you for your introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we'll talk about a big topic about free will. And you have seen probably on the leaflet already the question: Do I have a choice, and does it actually matter? Before I go into this, I want to introduce you to my former pet snake, Reinder. Reiner was a really awesome snake. I bought him a few years ago and we had a lot of joy together. But at some moment I was away for a weekend and I had some people from Airbnb in my house. And when I came back from my holiday, I found out that the cage was open. The terrarium was open. Reinder escaped. He was somewhere, but I didn't know where. He was always looking for freedom, he was always looking for a way out. And finally, the guests in my house helped him so he could finally follow his own path and make an own decision. A few years ago, I was living in Amersfoort with my wife, and we were living in a house of the Salvation Army. And in this house, there were different people living, but most of them came directly from the street, from rehab, or from the jail. People were busy with rebuilding their lives and making a better place for them. A lot of them had problems and came from really bad backgrounds. And one of them, let's call him Mike, became a really good friend of mine. And he told me a little bit about his story and what happened. And he said that he was one of the most wanted criminals of Amersfoort. Everybody was looking for him for a few years before that. He was a drug smuggler between Asian countries and the Netherlands, and he was on the top of the organization. He was the leader of it together with another person. And he was earning heaps of money. He could just buy houses with cash, he could do everything what he wanted. Travel as much as possible. Everything was possible for him. But at some moment, when he was in one of the Asian countries, he heard that the police was looking for him. And he thought, oh crap, I need to flee. So he directly flew back to the Netherlands. And just in time, he heard that the other leader of the organization was caught and that one person received the death penalty. And so he was really, really happy that he was back home, that he could continue his life here with still a lot of money. He lost one of his houses in that country. But he still could do a lot of things. And the way he was acting was always with violence, always with drugs, always with booze, and that kind of stuff. That was the kind of person he was. But at some moment, also in the Netherlands, the police was looking for him. And they caught him also. And this way he had to go to jail and lost his freedom. He was also like Reinder, looking for an escape, but never could escape from the prison. So he had to sit out the whole time. And then he came out and he had to live in a small room from the Salvation Army instead of the big houses he had before. His whole life, his properties were gone. He had to rebuild his life. And the question of today is this all out of free will? Was he free to choose what he has done? Or was it all maybe determined in some way? It's a big philosophical question, but it's all about, did all the events that happened in his life were caused by past events in his life, such that nothing than what did occur could occur? That's the question. Could something else be different, or did he just follow everything what happened? And it's a big question, so I want to talk with you about three topics. The first one is mainly also about the topic, what is free will and what does it mean? And my aim today is not to completely solve the problem, because there are a lot of really smart people who are still arguing about what if there's a free will or not a free will, and so on. So I just want to take a closer look on what does it mean, what are the positions we can take in this. And probably you know this guy, it's Dick Swaap. He's a really important person if you talk about determinism. He also wrote an important book. This one, Wij zijn ons brein, We are our brain. It's also translated in a few languages. And he's saying in his book the following: free will is a comfortable illusion. He's saying it's something, we have the feeling like we have free will, we have an option to do something different, but it's all an illusion. We make unaware decisions, and then we do it, and then we have the idea that we have done it. He's also giving the following definition: free will is the option to decide to do or not to do something without being constrained by internal or external forces. And in his book, he is explaining what does it mean, what kind of things are constraining us all the time. And he's giving the example that already from birth we are pushed in some way. A lot of things we cannot decide on ourselves. Our character is already formed in the womb. The religion we grow up with, our mother language, if we would be homosexual or heterosexual, asexual, all those things, also even your violence behavior is also already formed in the womb for a big part of it. So he's saying a lot of those things are already decided for you. You have no option, no any way you can have any influence on this. And he's going on also that this is not only what's happening, but because of this you were forced in some way of living. And when I was talking with Mike about his history, he told me a little bit about how he was growing up. And he told me about his father. His father was often drunk and was using a lot of violence. And when he was using violence against him or his mother, he was scared. But it was also the way he was learning how to get things done. You should stand up for yourself. You should use violence. And he told me also about one example that sometimes his father was pointing the gun he had to his mother, like, okay, you have to do this and this for me. That was the way his father was showing the love for his mother. The way he was also acting to his girlfriends later on. And he also explained me about one example from his primary school. He was bullied for one day, and he told about it when he came home to his father. And his father was really, really pissed off. And he put him in the car. He was driving to the house of the guy who was bullied him, and he gave him a bat in the hands. And he said to him, Mike, now you're going to enter that house, and you're going to smash everything down what you see until they've kicked you out. So he had to ring the bell. He stepped in and just smashed everything he could find down. That was the way he was growing up. And when I was hearing that story, I was really the feeling like, okay, of course he ended up in a bad situation and as a criminal, because the examples he received when he was back home were all focused on violence and all focused on getting things done for yourself and not focusing on someone else. So I think this is also an example of what Dick Swaap is also saying in his book. And Dick Swaap is continuing also, not only before birth, a lot of things are already decided, but also our moral and ethical decisions and values, they are all made up by ancient way of social living. In evolution and the way we're dealing with things, that's all just in ourselves. We cannot decide, we cannot make our own ethics, we cannot make our own moral. They are all decided already for us. And we're just following what the group is doing. And he's saying the last part of our freedom, our free will, is taken away by society. We're not allowed to do anything. We're not allowed to do everything we want. The society just claims on us we are not as free as we want to be. And he's also comparing it with a car. If you drive a car, then when you start with driving, you have to learn it. You have to do stuff and you have to think about it. But at some moment, if you drive a lot of times, you will do it automatically. And so a lot of things we are doing are done automatically. We learn to do them and we're doing them unaware. And this is with at least 95% of everything our body is doing is unaware. It's just happening. It's automatic. And already even a lot of things are saying it's maybe even 99.4% of everything we're doing is already decided for us. We cannot do anything to change it. And Swab is saying we have the feeling that we have a free will, but in the end we don't have a free will. There are already a lot of unaware decisions made inside, and they give us a feeling like we can decide on our own to do this. So that's the first point of view. Another point of view is the view of the libertarians. And the libertarians are saying something different. They say, okay, of course, there is partly a free will. Partly, for a lot of things, we are already doing things automatically. But they say there is still a part where there is some free will. There is still some possibilities. And Herman Kolk wrote a book, Free Will is Not an Illusion. It's a response on the book of Dick Swaap. And he's saying, yeah, of course we're doing all those things automatically. But still there are many options we can choose from. We can decide on how do we respond on things. You're giving the example, what if you're going to play football with your child? It can be really fun to do it. I just became a father this year, Evelyn already told me. I told everybody here. And just imagine, she's now in half a year, and I would play football with her. I could put her in a goal and take the ball and just shoot as hard as possible to make a goal. This could be a possibility. If I just think, okay, I just want to play football, I just want to win, that could be an automatic behavior. But Kolk is saying we can decide on that moment that we don't want to play for the winning. We can decide to play for the fun, to play together with the child and to do something fun with the ball, instead of just hitting her as hard as possible with the ball. We have that option. And he's saying also we have always can choose for what's preferable at the moment. What's preferable at this moment to act. We have a higher evaluation level than, for example, a snake. And he's also giving the example of the Sphex wasp. I don't know if you know it, but this is the wasp, the black thing on top with a yellow butt, red butt. And this wasp is taking some grasshoppers and poisoning them. And with poisoning them, they became paralyzed. They're still alive, but they cannot do anything. And what the wasp is doing, he's taking the grasshopper to a hole, and first he's making a hole and puts some eggs in it. And then the grasshopper is put next to it. Then the wasp is going back to the hole again, checking if it's still okay and still good. Then it's going out and takes the grasshopper inside the hole. And scientists have looked at this. And they just moved the grasshopper when the wasp was checking the hole, just a few centimeters aside. So here you can see the hole below a little bit and the grasshopper over there. And they just put a little bit aside. And when the wasp came out, he was checking and he was seeing, okay, that the grasshopper is not at the place where it should be. So first he was replacing the grasshopper next to the hole again. Then he was checking the hole again, came out, and the grasshopper was gone again. Scientists have done this 400 times, and then they stopped because they get bored. The wasp is doing this all the time and will do this, maybe until forever, or it will be until it dies. But he has a mindset, I have to do this again and again and again until it's good. And he's saying, we as human beings have a higher evaluation level. We can evaluate our values. We can decide what values do we want to follow. And we have a lot of options also in this. For example, there are a lot of different values we can choose from. But he's saying, by putting attention to something, we can do something automatically. By values that we're thinking is really important, maybe eat vegetarian or taking care of environment or whatever. we can put attention to it, and with this we can make them better, we can grow in it, but we need attention for it. And he's saying attention makes us free in some way. And he's also putting a lot of effort also on the idea of values. He's saying from a deterministic point of view, values are really, really difficult to explain. So determinist prefers to talk about feelings, about I like this or I don't like this. But he's saying something like value, to add value to something, is really difficult from a deterministic point of view. Like I also was saying on my talk on Monday, where I had a quote of Dawkins who was saying also there's no good, there's no evil. That's just something we prefer or not prefer. So that's also, I think, something that comes with libertarians. We have values. And by focusing on it, we can improve it. For example, Mike was also telling me that often in our house there came police because there were still a lot of bad guys living there. And when the police came, he was always afraid what they would do. He had always the feeling, I need to run. And sometimes he even run away for them. He told me about one incident. The police was just checking on the roads, cars were driving by, and he just directly turned around and drove as fast as possible away. So the police already thought, okay, we need to get this guy. So they went after him. But he didn't do anything wrong at that moment. He just ran because that was the way he was, his automatic behavior, his automatic response on what's possible. And he had to learn that the police could be also good, and he didn't have to run all the time. He also often ended up in fights in our house with roommates, and that was the way he had learned from his parents how to deal with problems, how to deal with, you have to fight for your rights. And he'd done it again and again. He had to learn that he didn't have to fight all the time. He had to revalue the things he was going for, and what he liked and what he preferred to do. So that's, I think, something where you see that you can reevaluate what's going on in your life. And Kolk is giving also some other things that we can do, how we can improve our freedom, how we can improve our free will. He's saying also we can use our imagination. We can think about how is it when my girlfriend or boyfriend will come back, or the person I hope will be my boyfriend or girlfriend. That can give a warm feeling inside. You can imagine how it feels that the person is around. And he's saying with that kind of imagination, you can already prepare for something that will happen in the future. So here we also have some free will we can use, and with freedom. And the last thing he's also saying is we can use our inner speech. We can have a discussion in ourselves. Do we want to do this? Is this what we prefer to do? And this is also, I think, something I was seeing in Mike. Mike was reevaluating his values, what he was fighting for, what he wanted to do. He had to learn that what will happen if he was ending up in a fight with roommates. And he also had to use his inner speech to, okay, do I want this? Is this what I really want to go for? In this way, he had some freedom. He had the opportunity to choose. And I think this is also is something really interesting to see in a real life of that person, because it means that we are not a slave of what we're doing. We can overrule our habits. We can overrule things what's going on. And with this, we also come to the next point, and that's about, does it really matter what's going on? What kind of decisions we make? Because I was telling about Mike, and for him it was just normal the way he was acting. But was he maybe forced in some way? Was he determined to do the things he was doing? Because of the way he was growing up, because of other things maybe in his body? How to deal with this? And I think it's a really important question to think about, because in his book, Dick Swaap also saying the following. He's saying, can you hold a pedophile morally responsible for his sexual orientation when you realize that the sexual preference is grounded in a genetic makeup, in an atypical development of the brain. And he's saying the same for aggressive behavior, delinquent behavior, kleptomanic, stalkers. He's saying there's something in their mind that make them do these things. And he's saying, is it fair if we judge them because of the way they are wired? Is it fair to do something like that? Is it not unjust to do it? And I think that's also the struggle we have maybe with Mike. Maybe it was just wired, maybe it was just the way he was acting. But it also becomes a moral discussion. Yesterday there was a talk also about moral. But it also means, can we judge something? Can we judge actions? Can we judge what's going on? Can we judge people? And when I was looking at Mike and his life, I was seeing him struggling all the time with his free will and his automatic behavior. All the time he was just fighting with it. And it was very easy for him to go back, to earn a lot of money. He still had good context for it. He was still capable of doing those things. But he had to always make the decision, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go for this. So in the end, he one of the important reasons also why he said, I don't want to do this anymore, is just before he went into prison in the Netherlands, his girlfriend became pregnant. In the first years of the child, he couldn't see the child because the child was not in the prison. And he really had the feeling like, I've missed something. Something I value. I really, really miss that. And I want to live for that. And since then he made the decision, I want to be there for my girl. I never want to go back into prison. He's not together anymore with his former girlfriend, but he's still seeing his daughter a lot of times. And he's thinking, that's really what I want to go for. He reevaluates what's going on, and he found something to live for, a reason to go for. But there was still a hunger also inside him. He was still restless. And on some moment he moved out of our house and received his own house. And on some moment he called me up and said, okay, Frederik, maybe a strange question, but maybe do you like to go with you and your wife with me to a church I often go to? And I was really surprised, like, this was the kind of guy who was just hitting people and kicking people and using a lot of drugs and using a lot of booze and so on. This was not the kind of guy I was thinking was determined to go to church. And I was really surprised, like, why did he go to church? What's happening? And he said, okay, it was just a neighbor of mine who was asking if I'd like to join once. And I really liked it. And he said there was something happening in him, something going on inside. He thought that he received something like a strength that he was using the rest of the week, that he really needed in some way. It gave him something that helped him during the whole week. And he said I don't know what it is. I'm still exploring. He's not sure if there is a God or not a God. But he's saying something happened there, and that makes me come back every week. Some strength, something going on. And with this, we could also come to my third point, and this is also about, if me, I'm a Christian, I believe we are made by a God. And for me, I think it's a really important thing also, how God has made us, is that we have a free will, that there is an option we can choose. And for this, maybe you've seen also the movie The Truman Show. It's about Truman. If you haven't seen it, I really can recommend it. It's since the beginning of this month again on Netflix, so you can still watch it. But Truman is living inside a real life, a reality program. And everybody is an actor except for Truman. Truman is born there, his parents are actors, his girlfriend is an actor, his neighbors are actors, all his friends are actors. And in this movie, you see slowly that all the relations he has are fake. They're just following a script. And I think it shows maybe also something how God has made this world. God didn't want to make something like Sea Heaven, the place where Truman was living. That God wanted to make a world where everybody has freedom, that people can choose free, for or against relationships, for or against good. But he also gave the options for us. If we want to investigate if there is a God or not a God, if we want to be in a relationship with this God or not. And I think the best place for us to be is in a relationship with God, because God is a God of love, and God wants to give his love also to us. In the beginning I told about Reinder. Reinder escaped, and 7 months later I received a call from the police. And the police found again my pet snake on the roof terrace of my neighbors, around something like 10 meters away from my house. Reiner had used his freedom just to move around 20 meters away from the place where he was living before. And the place where he lived in the 7 months, it was not a healthy place. It was between old houses with a lot of poisoned mice and so on. So it was not the best place for him to live. And I think when I received him back, I could put him back into a terrarium where he had good food and all the other things he needed, like warmth and all those things. I could take care of him. I think it's also working some way with this with God. I think God has a plan with us. God loves us, wants to give his love to us. And he wants to live into a relationship with us. But he doesn't going to force us. He's not saying, okay, you have to do this, and he's giving the option. And I think that's an option. You see how much he loves also us if you read the ancient biographies of Jesus. Maybe you have received already the goodie bag you could receive. If you didn't receive it, you can still apply for it from the committee. But in this goodie bag there's also a booklet, Uncover. And this is the oldest ancient biography of Jesus. And in this story, you can read about who Jesus is. And Jesus is described as God who came in this earth. God himself came to this earth to live with us and to show how a good life looks like and how we can make improvements, how we can make the world better by taking care of each other, to looking for each other and make a better world for other people. But it also tells a story about Jesus who died on a cross and rose after 3 days again from the grave. And there are eyewitness accounts of people who have seen him again. And this Jesus is offering us a relationship. He came to this earth and died for everything that's wrong between us and God, but also between us and other people. And this Jesus came to this place because he loves us and he cares about us. And he gives us the option. I want to be your friend. I want to be there for you in your life with your struggles. I want to take care of you. I love you. And I love so much for you that I even died for you 2,000 years ago. And this is something he is offering. And this is something Mike is still exploring. Mike is still searching what's going on. Is this real? Is this not real? And I want to challenge you also today